Hello and welcome to the show. I am here on GTA 5 at the top of Mount Chiliad for some more downhill chaos, and our first vehicle today is the Hyundai Grandeur. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Big four-door saloon car. A little bit different from the vehicles that went down here last week, but I've got to say actually this car quite impressed me. There's a lot more speed to it than I was perhaps expecting from it. Certainly on this first run. Yeah, I really did quite like this car. Managed to jump our way over a cougar there, and then everything immediately went wrong. Tried to take a little too tighter a line, clip the banking on the inside, and that was more than enough to see the Hyundai roll over, and then didn't want to right itself either after that one. This car was had a little problem with rolling over. Again, pushing my luck a little bit too much, just ran a tad wide, bounced across some rocks. Actually quite rare to see a car explode from a head-on impact. It's normally with the rear of the car smacking into something that causes the vehicles to explode. Pretty much all of the corners where you can have problems rolling cars, the Hyundai was having some issues around them. Had to be very careful. That was quite a spectacular jump. Don't really get so much airtime over there. Bouncing it around on the bumps was to cause a couple of issues as well. That time just being enough to see the Hyundai spun around in a circle. In general, it wasn't too bad for dealing with bumps, but if you did get things wrong, you could have some issues with this car up towards the high-speed jump a little bit on our side already, and it's never good when you misalign yourself for that jump there. It's not something that you want to be doing. As I've said many times before with this series, a little mistake, even a couple of corners earlier down the road can cause you big problems with some sections down here. Yeah, just got things a little bit wrong going up towards the jump, and that was that again. Some more big airtime across that section. Big two-wheeled moment is not a good idea coming around that particular corner. Yeah, too much time on two wheels, you're going to lose control, and apparently we're going to very cleanly lose a headlight as well. In all of that, yeah, you just can't quite recover it in time. Again, we're getting a big slide out of the corner, and that's too much. Just too much for the Hyundai. It doesn't quite have enough grip to recover that one. Unusual to spin a car there. I've got to say, it's quite unusual to see vehicles spin on this course, but yeah, did do that a couple of times with the Hyundai. Took a few runs to get a decent one out of this vehicle. As I said at the start, though, this is a nice car to drive. Actually, I did quite like it. There is plenty of speed in the Hyundai, and it actually does handle pretty damn well, but you've got to be very, very careful of it going up onto two wheels. Pretty much every section here where it could roll, it would. You see, I'm taking a slightly different line around that corner. I'm doing that with a lot of vehicles now to prevent them from rolling over. Very easy to see cars tip over on that part of the track, so I'm taking a wider line on the way in so that they don't quite deal with the road falling away as quickly. It gives the vehicles less problems with rolling over. Admittedly, this one here got a long way on two wheels, but it was still manageable. I kept it all going, and things were all together and pointing in the right direction. So that is the most important aspect of the lot. Coming across these jumps, yeah. If you got things lined up, you're all right. If you took the jumps straight, you didn't have problems. If you started taking them at slightly wonky angles, that's when you were going to get into a world of trouble with this car. And again, the landing of the fast jump there wasn't too bad as we fired the vehicle down the little side road, making sure to be aware of the bushes. Bushes weren't a tremendous problem with this. They weren't horrible, but you never want to be running through them unless you're 100% sure. And if you round the final corner a little bit on two wheels, and it's a slide across the line for the Hyundai, and we've managed to take out both of the headlights in that particular crash. Yeah, a little oversteer. The back end could just suddenly break away from you if you weren't being a little careful with this car. But all in all, it was a pretty nice vehicle. To drive down here, and plenty of speed. May have very nearly beached it when turning it around here. Got the back of it stuck on the hillside there. Very, very nearly got it stuck. That would be a very embarrassing way to end. Up next, we have got a Land Rover Defender. Yes, this should be much more suited to, well, dealing with some off-roading, and it's got, yeah, plenty of ground clearance. That's not necessarily a helpful thing, though. We have seen quite a few times with trucks and SUVs and so on. When they have large ground clearance, that means a high centre of mass. Another large ground clearance, sure, is good for going over bumps and so on, but going around corners at relatively high speeds also mean they have a tendency to fall over. So I was expecting to have some issues with the Land Rover when it came to the corner. We saw the Hyundai having issues with falling over. Kind of feared that we might see the Land Rover take a liking to falling over. We made it, that was the corner I thought we may see issues. We made it around it the first time though by making sure to stay off the banking. It was a little further down, an unusual place, I will be honest, very unusual place to see a car get on two wheels. When we go over the crest of the hill and when we started going downhill, getting ready for the next corner, that's when it decided to go up onto two wheels. As strange, I don't think of any vehicle I've ever driven down here has ever done that particularly. I mean, we managed to recover it and get it actually back onto the path despite the slight shortcut. Yeah, I don't think any other vehicles ever quite tried to roll over in that particular manner. Things were already going slightly out of control on this run, and yeah, I didn't quite take a wide enough line. With these cars, between the Hyundai and Land Rover, pretty much decided that you're going to have to take a wider line through there. Now, there was one curious problem with the Land Rover, and again, this is not necessarily something we haven't seen before either. I remember the Sand King and the Messer, the Merryweather Messer, having this problem of bouncing. So you saw there, after we took the jump, the car kind of bounces back up in the air, and it kind of gets bounced along on the bumps, and then you just lose control. Again, very similar story on this particular one. I ran the wheels over the edge of the cliff, and as we tried to come back on, the car just starts bouncing a little bit. And once it kind of starts going, you've lost control, and at the speeds we're travelling, very easy for it to find its way off the course. I mean, it's very good at climbing its way back up again, but yeah, the suspension is a little bit on the bouncy side, and I was having real problems with this part of the track. This part of the track was causing all manner of issues, that particular jump. I don't know why in particular there, but every time I hit the landing, the Land Rover was being thrown about. Again, next attempt, we're taking the jump nice and straight this time as well, and then we get a big bounce and a big wheelie, and then I'm struggling and fighting, trying to get it all back under control again, and it's not really worked. It just hated that landing for whatever reason. So yeah, I had to take a slightly different line through that part of the track just to simply avoid the jump. Took a few attempts to get the hang of the Land Rover. You had to be very, much like with the Hyundai, you had to be very careful with running the bankings. It didn't take that much to get this thing up onto two wheels. It didn't actually quite roll over as easily as I was expecting, but you would get it up onto two wheels. And once it was up on two wheels, the run was as good as over anyway. Even if it didn't completely fall over, it was going to slow you down or mess up your line. You see me there taking that wider line. It's you can carry just as much speed with the cars. It just stops the vehicles from rolling over. So yeah, it's a useful technique to use on that particular corner. The brakes on the Land Rover were pretty good. Had fairly decent power, fairly decent speed. I mean, it's not likely to compete with the supercars and so on for power and so on. But yeah, it did a decent enough job getting itself around here. This bit here, as I said, I had to take the alternate route down here simply because the jump messed up too much. The suspension just bounced the car back up into the air, had all sorts of issues around there. Interestingly, this high-speed jump here didn't have the same issues. It seemed much better, much smoother, how you would expect these off-road vehicles to deal with that landing. I don't know what it was. It's just the way the terrain is, I'm guessing, was causing problems for the Defender. As we come round the second to last corner, got a little bit on two wheels. I was slightly worried about that one, and around the final turn, though, there is no problems as the Land Rover goes. It wants to go for a backflip across the line. Doesn't quite get the full backflip, but yeah, interesting flight path across the finish line there. Yeah, the Land Rover, you know, as you would expect, pretty good at dealing with the off-road sections. The likelihood of rolling over meant you had to be quite careful. It was that one of the large jumps. I don't know why it just didn't like that. Everywhere else wasn't too bad. Down the course. Our third and final vehicle for the day is a Volvo truck. Haven't driven any sort of really ridiculously oversized vehicles down here on PC, so I thought I would give this a go when I saw the mod for it. Kind of curious to see how the trucks would do. Now, immediately, by this point, I've already made a mistake. So the brakes on the trucks are not particularly good. I mean, there's a lot of weight to try and slow down as they're going downhill. And then on this opening run, I wasn't really quite sure where I was to go on the brakes, and I braked far too late. And there is nothing you can do. I mean, you can hear the thing trying to get stopped, but it's simply not going to work. Also, once the trucks do get tumbling down Chiliad, unlike some of the cars and some of the vehicles that have gone down here, you are not going to stop it. And once it started rolling down this hill, the momentum is far greater than the brakes can slow down. So if it is pointing down the hill, I can be full on the brakes and it's not going to stop. And now it's going reverse, of course. You can't be on the brakes because it will stick the thing into reverse gear. So yeah, trying to get this thing to stop once it started tumbling down the mountain is not going to happen until you eventually, in this case, beach it on a rock. But until you hit something, it's not stopping. Next attempt, still hadn't got the braking right. Better, this time we actually kind of made the corner a little bit more, almost stayed on the path, found some hikers, still not got any control of the truck, and it's going to fall over and go tumbling down the mountainside again. The brakes were a big thing because you've just got to brake so much earlier with this than pretty much anything else. This time around, well, there's another way to stop, of course, and that is to hit something very hard and end up having the truck explode. It took a little bit of time trying to get used to the braking zones. Again, trying to get it stopped down this part of the track. I can't quite do it, and the trucks have this habit, especially across the bumps, they start kind of wobbling from side to side to get it on two wheels, and then you're really not stopping. Again, another very, very heavy impact. I think this episode has probably got the record for vehicles exploding from head-on collisions with 3. Normally it's from landing on the back of them or landing on the sides that cause issues. Again, down towards turn 1, this time almost got the braking sorted. Still ran a little bit too wide, and now we're going to go for a flip and a spin, managing to get caught by some trees relatively early on, and then some rocks as well. Yeah, essentially, you have got to go on the brakes almost immediately after you set off if you want to survive. Further down, equally, we're having some issue with this little side road because it is such a steep road. I mean, this camera doesn't quite do it justice. When you climb up it, you really get a feel of just how steep this is. This is a seriously steep road, which means if you take any speed, try and go down here, the momentum is so much you just can't stop. I'm on the brakes the entire way down there. It's not stopping. The truck is not going to stop at all, and then you're going to go ploughing over the rocks and tumble down the other side. It kind of eventually comes to a rest. Yeah, quite a long way away from where I wanted it to be getting stopped. Other places having issues, again, wherever there were these steep hills, you had to really yank on the brakes, trying to hope. That time I was pushing my luck a little bit too much as we go soaring straight off the cliff. Yeah, it was very much you've got to learn your braking zones. They are fundamentally important with this Volvo. Other issues there weren't too much of, aside from me doing a silly thing with not quite got it turned in time. On that one as we go rolling, managed to roll before we ever got to this bottom corner here. I was amazed. I managed to gather it all back up again as we kind of ran the banking, did a J-turn, and the truck is now back pointing in the correct direction. Didn't quite think it was going to come off quite that well. As I said, it took a bit of practice to get the hang of this truck. It is literally a case of you set off, you go around that first, the initial kink, and then it's on the brakes. If you want to get stopped for this corner here, you are on the brakes immediately, and even this time, that is as much as I can push my luck with the truck. You can't push it anymore, otherwise you're going to go across the rock and you're probably going to lose control. It's still most of the way down there, you are solidly on the brakes, trying not to let the truck run away because it's such a steep section. As I said before, this camera angle here doesn't quite do it justice, just how steep some of these parts are, and the truck simply won't get stopped down them. So yeah, a lot of the time is spent on the brakes. I'm still taking that wide line, honestly. I don't think it really matters with this semi-truck. The Volvo's not going to roll over through there. Handbrake was surprisingly useful. This is actually quite agile, quite decent handling. When it came to like this hairpin, you could chuck it around here, and it dealt with that okay. I had no problems with getting around the hairpin. That's always a concern when you have these larger vehicles, that you might not quite be able to make some of the very, very tight corners. That hairpin being the main important one. It is an incredibly narrow corner. With the jumps and so on, this one I was again pushing my luck of getting it bounced across. You could actually kind of get away with almost going nose first into the ground. It kind of stopped the momentum of the truck, so yeah, you didn't get carried away in the landing zones. Now down here, I had, up until this run, been taking the side escape road, the same as I had been with the Land Rover. On this particular attempt, a two-wheeled moment forced me to fight for control and take it across the jump, amazingly surviving all of it. Still not entirely sure how I did get away with all of that, but nevertheless, it did work. Again, coming down here, this jump, just letting the truck go a little bit nose first to kill some of that momentum on the landing. You wouldn't normally do that with cars. The last time we saw the Ferrari Concept have issues with doing that, just stop the Ferrari dead. But with this, it was useful to stop that excess momentum. Again, down this little side road, pretty much solidly on the brakes. You just got a tiny little bit of throttle to get it in, and then on the brakes all the way down here, trying frantically to keep control of the vehicle. We make it around that second to last corner. One more turn to go. We're up on two wheels, run quite wide in the Volvo, and bounce our way across the line. And then it's back on the brakes to try and get the thing just about vaguely stopped. Yeah, it was an experience. It's been a while since I've driven something like this down Chiliad. I was spinning around with the camera as well. May not quite have paid attention to where the road went. Promptly fell over. And then, yeah, that was not the greatest piece of driving that I've ever done. It was certainly a challenge. Certainly a challenge driving a great big truck down Chiliad. Now, on to the times. The Hyundai is the quickest of the day, and it's a very impressive time. 1:55.2. Puts it into 20th. That's quicker than a Lotus Exige. It's only half a second off an Aston Martin GT3 car. That's a really rather good time. It's a second down on that mighty Peugeot. But, yeah, I was really impressed. That Hyundai is a lovely car to drive. Very, very quick. Got to be careful, though. Got to be careful of rolling over. It beats the Lotus 49 and the Black Fit as well. Yeah, it's a really, really rather good car. We have to go a little bit further down on the table. 47th for the Land Rover Defender. A 1:31.4. Slightly slower than the Moonbeam. Just beats the Space Docker. The Defender's not a bad vehicle, but the bouncy suspension causes a few issues, and again we have a rolling problem with that car. If you push it a little bit too hard, so you did have to be careful through some sections, and you know it's not got the power. It's not got the power and the speed of some of the faster vehicles. Still, they're not too bad at a time. And the truck, well, it is down at the bottom. It gets beaten by all of the drift cars, a 2:16.2. However, it is still 10 seconds quicker than the Peel P50. Yeah, the Peel was not a particularly good car for driving down the side of a mountain, and equally the Volvo was very, very difficult, but you just have to spend so much time on the brakes basically with that thing to sort it out. The actual suspension dealt with the course very well, whereas the Peel had many issues. It was just the brakes in the Volvo you had to look out for. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. I will put a link to all of the mods that I have used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.